Hey guys, how's it going? I hope you're all doing really well as always. Welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Flying V guitars and what you should consider if you're thinking of buying one. So in my opinion, the Flying V is pretty much one of the coolest shapes out there. They're played by a lot of my guitar heroes and been playing them myself since I was about 16 years of age. But in lots of different shapes, lots of different models. But yeah, today I thought I'd talk about the things that you're going to want to watch out for if you're thinking of investing in one. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is sitting with them can be a little bit awkward if you're used to sort of a more traditional shape. Eventually, I sort of came round to it, and it's probably the most comfortable shape for me now. But I am one of those guys who's 100% in the minority there. But to be quite honest with you, it's great because if you're like I am, and you hate it when people come in and they just help themselves to your guitars, it's a massive deterrent to that. Because like lots of guys I know who play guitars, they literally won't play my guitars because they hate sitting with them. So yeah, you're going to want to watch out for the fact that if you try and sit like this with it, it's just not going to happen, okay? You're going to have to sit with it sort of in this sort of classical formation. The one thing that you can do to sort of make it a little bit more comfortable is I like to kind of like lock the lower horn, sort of like round my lower leg right here. And it just sort of like keeps it in place. The other thing that I like to do as well is I have something on the floor under my left leg when I'm sat with it, So for every video that I've ever done on the channel, or whenever I sit down and play these things, I've always had this box literally on the floor, and yeah, it just helps me put my left leg up, and it gives the guitar a little bit more support. The one thing I will say is if you're thinking of investing in the Rhodes shape, the idea of sort of like locking that lower wing in your leg just goes completely out the window. These are much less comfortable to play, and you can see there's quite a lot of play there as I'm trying to get this thing to stay still on my lap. So a full V is probably going to be a lot more comfortable than the Rhodes shape. One of the best things you can do for yourself though when you're sat with this thing is try to avoid sort of like holding it, if that makes sense. You want the guitar to just sort of sit freely on you, so you don't have to worry about supporting it in any way. If you look at the way I've got it there, the guitar is just sat still, it's not going anywhere. I've sort of like got it locked in here. My foot is up on the box on the floor, so all I have to worry about is just sort of going up and down the fretboard and playing now. The next thing which absolutely ruined my playing when I started playing Flying V's is it's the temptation to sort of like lurch over the neck. If you're lurching over the neck, your posture's all out, right? I've really got a messed up back from all these years of playing and probably having bad posture whilst doing it. So because the neck is quite far out, there is that temptation, because you can't see anything, right? There is that temptation to sort of lean over and look at what you're doing. You're gonna have to get used to that. You're gonna have to get used to just sort of like trusting your fingers to know where the strings are, and not just by going off of sight alone. So if you've got that sorted and you're happy with the idea of not sort of like lurching forward, the next thing that might end up getting you, and this got me pretty bad, and it destroyed my playing, is this, right? Letting the guitar sort of like lean back on you. What we talked about earlier, you don't really want to be holding the guitar while you're playing, okay? You want it to be effortless. You shouldn't be supporting the neck because your hand needs to run freely up and down the board, right? So if you're not lurching over it, there's that temptation to let it come back on you, okay? And I used to wonder like why my hands would get so tired, like when doing like certain runs at the top of the neck or whatever, or even just riffing. And look at that, look at all that weight that I'm supporting right now. And that's me just trying to, just see where I'm going. So that is a massive thing that's going to hold you up if you end up sort of like supporting the neck, because that's a heck of a lot of weight. Your hand's not going to be able to move freely. I mean, look at that. I'm supporting the neck right there. So try to resist letting the neck sort of like fall back on you, and so you can see what you're doing. The next thing that I'll mention, which is a really good thing for me personally, is you've got so much room with your picking. Like I said, I hate sitting traditionally, and I always feel really sort of like bunched up, especially when I'm starting to go a little bit faster when playing guitar. So if I'm playing like my Explorers or my San Dimas or whatever, I always feel like I need to sort of like bring the guitar over just to have a little bit more room for my arm to breathe. This way I've got no tension in my arm whatsoever when I'm playing and I'm speeding up. You shouldn't have any tension anyway, but for me it happens every now and then. The one thing you will have to get used to is your picking's going to be more central now to where you're sat, and you're going to have to watch sort of like the angle that the pick is attacking the strings, okay? I've talked about this in my lesson videos. You never want the pick to be sort of slashing the strings. If you do that, you're going to get this horrible sort of scratchy sound, and nobody wants to hear that. With metal guitar, it's always encouraged to have sort of like ever such a slight angle forward with the pick, just to sort of like bite through the strings, which is absolutely okay. And that's what you're going to need to find. You're going to need to find sort of a happy medium here, so you don't want to be all the way forward, Otherwise, it's going to make that scratchy sound. You just want to just sort of get that perfect sort of bite, so it's ever just slightly forward. Or if you're one of them super flat pickers, you know, just make sure that you're going to have to come back a little bit. If you look at the angle of my wrist, it's a completely different idea. You know, if I sit with the guitar normally, look at the position of my wrist. Yeah. If I bring it here, look how my wrist is almost going like upward now. You don't need to go like all the way round and up like Marty Friedman or Zakk Wylde or whatever. But you are going to have to just sort of account for that. The best way I would say to do that is just rest your palm on the bridge itself, straight in line, okay? Then bring the pick to the strings, okay? And that's pretty much the angle that you want to sort of be picking at. So palm, bridge, straight in line, pick to the strings. That's sort of the angle that you want to be at. It's going to feel really weird to begin with, but eventually, for me anyway, it's just become super comfortable and I've not had to worry about my arm tiring out, and I've got all this room for my arm to just relax while I'm playing. The other thing that I will mention as well is you might want to think about sort of the angle that your wrist is going to go down when you're moving on to higher strings, okay? You want to kind of avoid going straight down with your pick, because if you go straight down, look where I've ended up, all the way near the back, near the bridge, okay? So you are going to want to sort of account for that by keeping your arm or your wrist quite far forward. So you've got a nice sort of straight attack that isn't really straight positionally, but for the strings it is. The other thing that I'll mention as well is your arm is going to be quite far out when you're sort of reaching down for chords down the bottom of the neck or whatever it is you're doing down there. The thing I'll say about that is try to avoid having your arm sort of like locked into your body. You know, when I used to teach bass players, because that's a much longer instrument, right? They would really struggle to like reach down to first fret or whatever, and I'd say to them like, let your arm come out. You know what I mean? Like it's not just all in the wrist and the forearm. And that's something you're gonna have to apply to the Flying V. Okay, so just let your arm come out as a whole. Again, it's gonna feel big. It's probably gonna feel quite cumbersome to start with and a little bit of a stretch, but eventually you will get used to it. The next thing I'll mention is these guitars are without doubt some of the most comfortable guitars to play when standing up if you're sort of a mid to low guy like I am. If you're one of these guys who likes to have the guitars up here, these guitars probably aren't really for you, because I mean look at the way it's sat, right? It's not 100% comfortable. These shapes tend to sit really well sort of like at a midpoint on your body or lower down if you're going for the Hetfield thing, right? Just because it is that shape though, it doesn't mean that you have to have the guitar all the way down your knees in order to try and look cool, right? We've all done it, we've all been there, but you find that you get to a point where the guitar is that low that your playing starts to suffer. The lower that guitar is, the less reach you're gonna have, right? And you're gonna wanna find a happy medium for where these things sit on you. And you know, even if it is a little bit higher than you sort of planned on it being, but you can play well, you're just gonna have to take the hit on that one. And then if you want to get it lower, just slowly just start taking your strap down just a little bit at a time until it's still comfortable for you to play. What does happen when standing up with certain Flying Vs, not mine, but certain ones, is you get quite a little bit of neck dive. It really depends on the model that you're buying. With the Rhodes right there, you'd think it would neck dive, but it's quite a light guitar, and I'm not sure if it's because the headstock's inverted that keeps it from diving. This thing, it's quite a little bit heavier, but it is actually quite well balanced. So it really does depend on the guitar that you're buying. I've played like a Gibson V before, that didn't neck dive. I've played a Dave Mustaine signature guitar, that didn't neck dive either. But certain other guitars like Jackson's or whatever, you might find that they tend to sort of like lean down a little bit when you're playing, and again, you're into the territory of having to support that neck when you're playing, right? So that's probably where you're going to need to sort of find where your strap sort of sits best on you, so that you can sort of support the neck, but without it being too cumbersome on your arm, like holding you up. So the best advice I could offer there is, if you're wondering whether your guitar's going to have neck dive or not, is literally just go and play it and find out for yourself and see if you're comfortable with it. And that would probably be my main advice for Flying Vs on a whole, right? Just go and play a bunch of them and see if you like them. Sit down with them, see if you like how they feel on your lap, see if it's something that you can get used to. Try it on a strap as well. Try standing up with it, see what you think. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're going to be the best person to make that decision. So if you're thinking about maybe ordering one online and you've never played one before, I would definitely advise to go and play one first, because you might end up spending the money, getting it to your house or whatever, and you might absolutely hate it. I personally absolutely love the Flying V shape, but again, I am 100% in the minority there. Like I said, my friends who play guitar, they will not pick up my guitars because they hate sitting down with them. So there you go, guys. There's some things to consider if you're thinking about buying a Flying V guitar. If you've got any questions, please be sure to leave them down below in the comments or come and hit me up on Instagram. As always, please be sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video and subscribe if you're new here. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next one.